why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready?
Ask you to speak yet, please. Right?
I've covered him for a very long time. I talk to a lot of people who speak to him regularly. He doesn't know really how to deal with it.
There are journalists, and then there are storm chasers. Kaitlan Collins, CNN's hard-hitting White House correspondent turned primetime anchor, didn't just chase the storm, she was the storm. From the very first time she stepped into the White House briefing room during Donald Trump's administration, it was clear she wasn't interested in being liked. She was there to get answers, to hold power accountable, and to never, ever flinch. What made her so dangerous to Trump wasn't just her questions, though they were sharp, relentless, and almost surgical in their precision. It was her poise, her calm, her refusal to be intimidated even when the full weight of the Trump presidency came crashing down on her with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. While others bent or softened or danced around the president's volatility, Collins stood her ground, again and again. Trump, who famously praised or lambasted reporters based on whether they flattered him or didn't, couldn't seem to decide what to do with Collins. She was young, in her 20s when she first began covering the White House, and from a conservative background. She didn't fit the usual mold of a so-called enemy of the people, but she didn't pull punches either. And for someone like Trump, that was a problem. One of the earliest signs of the coming war between them came in July 2018.
Ask you to speak yet, please. Right?
President, you won the White House in part because of high inflation. If your tariffs make prices go up...
We haven't...
Collins had shouted a series of questions at Trump during a White House press event. Questions about Vladimir Putin, Michael Cohen, and the president's shifting statements. Nothing inappropriate, nothing aggressive, just blunt. Trump didn't answer, but the next day, the White House banned Collins from attending another press event. The official excuse? Her questions had been inappropriate. The real reason? She got too close to the truth, and they didn't like her tone. That ban backfired. Hard. News outlets across the political spectrum came to her defense. Even Trump-friendly Fox News criticized the move. Suddenly, Collins was no longer just a White House reporter. She was a symbol of press freedom, of courage under pressure, and of how dangerous a composed, unflinching woman with a microphone can be to an insecure man with unchecked power. But that was just the beginning. Through COVID briefings, campaign rallies, chaotic press gaggles, and the post-election meltdown of 2020, Collins was there, always with a notepad in hand, always asking the questions others were too afraid to ask.
He's a friend of CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility. Okay, who else? Yes, please. It should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
She pressed Trump on the death tolls, on the lies, on the conspiracy theories. When Trump insisted that injecting disinfectant might somehow cure COVID, it was Collins who sat in the front row, deadpan, letting the absurdity hang in the air. She didn't need to editorialize, her face said everything. The clip went viral. By 2020, Trump began openly clashing with her on live TV. "You're fake news," he barked during one particularly tense moment. Collins didn't blink. "Respectfully, Mr. President, that's not true," she replied.
I've covered him for a very long time. I talk to a lot of people who speak to him regularly. He doesn't know really how to deal with it, since he was just a New Yorker who was calling into the tabloids under a different name and pushing good press out there about himself. I think when you've covered Trump for a long time, you kind of know his playbook. It doesn't vary that much. It's kind of been the same.
Calm, controlled, unshaken. In a White House where so many journalists had learned to sidestep or soften in order to maintain access, Collins never played the game. She chose integrity over proximity, and Trump hated it. But the real damage she inflicted wasn't in the momentary sound bites. It was the accumulation. Day after day, briefing after briefing, she chipped away at the facade. She documented the chaos, the contradictions, the cruelty. Her reporting painted a picture not with outrage or spin, but with receipts, quotes, footage, timelines. She made sure the public could see what was happening behind the curtain, no matter how much the administration tried to distract, discredit, or distort. And then came the post-election period. While some networks hesitated to call out the president's lies about voter fraud, Collins didn't hesitate. She asked officials to clarify. She called out falsehoods in real time. She confronted Trump allies, face to face, when they tried to gaslight the nation. Her fact-based persistence became a lifeline for millions trying to understand what was real and what was propaganda. Her rise wasn't just about Trump. It was bigger than him. In a landscape dominated by bluster and performative punditry, Collins brought something rarer: clarity. She didn't scream. She didn't grandstand. She simply did the work. And when CNN promoted her to co-anchor CNN This Morning and later gave her the 9 p.m. slot, a highly coveted primetime position, it wasn't just a promotion. It was a statement.
One person who was at the Capitol that day, as you know, was your vice president, Mike Pence, who says that you endangered his life, say that he does not have that authority, Mr. President. But I want to
why
move
did
on.
they change the law then, saying that you can't do it?
They didn't change the law; they strengthened the law. But you're referring to the Electoral Count Act.
That's
I've read that. There is no authority.
No,
legal
excuse
experts,
me.
including Republican legal experts.
Because while Trump had tried to diminish her, she kept rising. While he tried to silence her, she got louder, not in volume, but in reach. While he raged at the media, she became one of its most recognizable and respected faces. Trump's frustration only grew. Even after leaving office, he continued to take jabs at her, referring to her with condescending nicknames, questioning her intelligence, suggesting she was biased. But it didn't matter. Every time he said her name, it was a reminder that she had gotten under his skin, that she had won. And perhaps the most ironic part of the entire saga? Kaitlan Collins started her career at the Daily Caller, a conservative outlet co-founded by Tucker Carlson. She wasn't some far-left provocateur. She understood the right. She came from the South. She knew the language. And yet, she turned out to be one of the most effective truth-tellers of the Trump era, not in spite of her background, but because of it. She couldn't be easily dismissed as part of the liberal elite. She broke the mold. And that made her even more dangerous. By 2023, Collins had fully stepped into her role as a leading voice in American journalism. Her one-on-one town hall interview with Trump, conducted live in front of a New Hampshire audience.
It's very simple. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you. Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
You
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it. Why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return
Are
them?
you ready?
Was one of the most talked-about media events of the year. She challenged him directly on election lies January 6th and his legal troubles. Trump interrupted. He shouted. He insulted. But Collins didn't back down. She kept the interview on track, fact-checked him on the spot, and maintained composure through chaos. Viewers were divided. Some praised the network for giving Trump a platform, others criticized it. But one thing was universally agreed upon. Collins handled it with toughness and grace. It was a masterclass in interviewing someone who refuses to play by the rules. Trump called her nasty. His supporters launched online attacks. But Collins never engaged in the drama. She didn't need to. The facts were her weapons, and she wielded them with quiet precision. Looking back, what Collins accomplished wasn't just a personal victory. It was a reminder that journalism at its best still matters. That in the face of lies, obfuscation, and power plays, there are still reporters willing to stand firm. And that sometimes the most effective form of resistance isn't shouting back. It's staying calm, staying focused, and refusing to be silenced. For all of Trump's bluster about fake news, it was journalists like Kaitlan Collins who preserved the truth. While others fell into the trap of becoming the story, she stayed grounded in the reporting. She didn't become famous for yelling or going viral. She became famous for not backing down, for asking the hard questions, for being unshakable. and for proving day after day that one hot reporter with a cold stare and the facts on her side can do more damage to a dishonest president than any insult ever could.